The firing of the CDC director late Wednesday by Donald Trump and I guess HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is literally the most predictable thing in the world. And yet you are going to hear, especially Republicans, act surprised. So let's just talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., okay, the head of Health and Human Services. There is no question, no debate that his views, particularly on vaccines, have long been outside accepted medical norms, okay, and research. We know that. We knew that going in. It is why his nomination was so controversial. So the idea that he not only got rid of a 17-person board that approves vaccines for the country, but also pressure the director of the CDC, who that board reports to resign because her views on vaccines did not line up with his. Again, why are we surprised by this? It's the most obvious, predictable thing in the world. I went back because I just wanted to make sure. I went back. So Kennedy's confirmation hearing was at the end of January of this year. It was very contentious. He barely got confirmed. And the way he got confirmed was that Bill Cassidy, who is a medical doctor, a Republican from Louisiana, ultimately voted for Kennedy's nomination. Now, the hearing, Kennedy and the confirmation hearing, Kennedy and Cassidy go back and forth repeatedly. I just want to read you a little bit of the reporting about the hearing. Throughout the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee hearing, Kennedy called for a return to, quote, gold standard science, end quote, and said he would support vaccines if shown data backing their safety. But when presented with such data, Kennedy said he wasn't familiar with it or cited reasons to doubt it. Just going to keep going for a little bit. When Cassidy pointed to a 2014 meta-analysis of 1.2 million children that concluded there is no link between autism and vaccines, Kennedy responded, "You show me those scientific studies and you and I can meet about it. And there are other studies as well. I'd love to show those to you." Okay, now that's clearly Kennedy saying like, yeah, I've got my own studies here. All right, this is what Cassidy, who I remind you voted for Kennedy. He was the deciding vote to confirm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS Secretary. This is what he said after those hearings. Quote, "Can a 71-year-old man who spent decades criticizing vaccines and who's financially vested in finding fault with vaccines, can he change his attitudes and approach now that he'll have the most important position influencing vaccine policy in the United States? I got to figure that out for my vote." Cassidy knew the right thing to do here. Of course, a 71-year-old man, as he said, who has financial interest in undermining the sort of traditional vaccine accepted wisdom, isn't going to change his views. Kennedy built his public reputation in the last 20 years on being an anti-vaxxer. And so we're going to act surprised when he gets rid of all the establishment folks at HHS who approve vaccines and puts his own people on this 17-person panel, or when he ousts the CDC director because she won't rubber stamp what he wants in terms of vaccine approvals, or I'll even note when he reduces the people eligible for the COVID vaccine, as he did, HHS did this week, or as he said, as he did this week, that in September he's going to come out with some stunning findings about the real origins of autism. Hint, hint, they're going to be related to vaccines because that's what Kennedy believed. Making decisions like Bill Cassidy did have consequences. Putting someone who is an anti-vaxxer in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in charge of the department that oversees vaccination policy in this country has consequences. We are seeing those consequences now. We are going to continue to see them. This is, as I said, the most predictable story ever. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., even in his confirmation hearing, did the whole like, well, I've got studies that show other things bit. Again, not a doctor. Bill Cassidy, doctor. Robert F. Kennedy, not a doctor. The woman who got ousted at the CDC on Wednesday night, doctor. The other three people who resigned in protest, doctors. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not a doctor. Okay. So again, don't be surprised by this. And if you want to look for blame, don't blame RFK Jr. I mean, we knew his views. He didn't hide his views. Blame Bill Cassidy. And the reason that Bill Cassidy, by the way, voted for RFK Jr., even though he didn't want to, is he's up for re-election in 2026. He has a serious primary challenge. He voted to convict Donald Trump when it came to impeach Donald Trump after January 6th. And he's trying to get right with Donald Trump. He didn't want to be the vote tanking Donald Trump pick for HHS. Simple as that. He knew that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s views on vaccines were way outside the mainstream, and he had to know that stuff like this happening was a real possibility. But he did it anyway because of politics. Least surprising outcome ever. All right, everybody. I ask you to do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button. You get free content like this every day, and I continue to grow as an independent news creator. Thanks and take care.